Will democracy survive in the next couple of years?
And essentially, we are the same.
And there are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center in Medi-Spa in Egan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Firefly Credit Union, with locations throughout the Twin Cities, has proudly served Minnesotans since 1925. Firefly guides its members forward by delivering customized financial solutions to improve their lives in all aspects of banking. Firefly Credit Union, they light the way with life illuminated. EDINA Eye, Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years. Now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, EDINA Eye offers comprehensive services but dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome, Access to Democracy returns. Alan Miller with you. And we have a very special guest who is, because of the wonders of Zoom, appearing from a floating island off the state of Maine or something like that. And he's sort of an old friend, and I can say that really now, but Bob Mrazek, who was a 5-time congressman on Long Island back in the days when I lived on Long Island, has become also an award-winning writer of 11 books, most of which have won awards in historical fiction. And he's also the writer and producer of a movie called The Congressman, which starred Treat Williams back about 4 years ago. I haven't seen him in literally ages. Bob, welcome.
Thank you so much, Alan. It's a pleasure to see you again. And yes, we both look a little more grizzled than the last time we met, I imagine.
When Bob was in Congress, he was good enough to put items that I was involved in politically at the time into the congressional record. So if we look long enough and hard enough, we can find them. He was a dynamite congressman, progressive in an area of Long Island that wasn't quite ready to be progressive, but he managed to last 5 terms there. So that says something about his wherewithal. And now we're here to talk about his latest book, an incredible book called The Indomitable Florence Finch. And why don't you tell us a little bit about the book?
Well, Alan, old politicians have a way of exaggerating, but I must say that this is the most extraordinary story that I was privileged to come across and have a chance to research and write about an amazing woman who saved hundreds of lives of American POWs after the Bataan Death March in the Philippines, and who was given the Medal of Freedom by President Harry Truman as one of the most decorated women in the Pacific War, American women. And one could ask the question, why don't we know her story? And the answer is, she never told anyone what she had done when she came to the United States. And it wasn't until 50 years after the war in 1995 that the United States Coast Guard decided to name their new Pacific headquarters in Hawaii after Florence Finch. And her two grown children, adult children, said, "Mom, what's going on here?" And that's when the story really finally came out, what she had accomplished and what it cost her personally to save all those lives.
Now, it's a wonderful book. It's just out. I know it's on Amazon. I guess you can get it at any of your bookstores. If they don't have it, they certainly can order it. And it is available. And we will give you a screenshot of it now, if Avi would bring that up, and you get a chance to see it before you hear about the book. And here we go. Good enough. The research that went into this book had to be overwhelming. You did literally research in so many different areas, both here and in Washington, and I assume in the Philippines, in terms of just the bibliography and the referrals. So why don't you talk about that and talk about what it is that Florence Finch did that was so outstanding.
Okay, thank you, Alan. It was a difficult story to research, particularly her early years. She survived a very traumatic childhood. And even after she spoke to her children about what she had done during the war, she told them that she couldn't remember her early childhood, which was her way of saying, I'm not going to burden you with what our family experienced. Her father was an American soldier during the Spanish-American War. He was from Buffalo, New York. He volunteered as a medic after the accounts of Teddy Roosevelt going up San Juan Hill. He was a young romantic. When he got to the Philippines, they were in the middle of a very savage battle against the Philippine insurrectionists, who rightly felt that after we defeated the Spanish, we would free them and allow them to be independent. And instead, we made them our possession. So her father was a very young man. After the war ended in 1902, he decided he wanted to stay. He did not want to go back to Buffalo winters. And he became a plantation owner, a very successful plantation owner, and built up a very substantial estate. Along the way, he met a woman, a beautiful Filipino woman named Maria Hermoso. And Maria, unfortunately, was already married and had a daughter, a baby daughter named Flaviana. But he convinced her to leave her husband and live with him as his common law wife because there was no divorce in the Philippines. They had 6 children together. Florence was the 4th child. And her early years were fine until Flaviana became 17 years old and was a much more lovely version of her mother and far more sophisticated. Her father, Charles Ebersol, I'm talking about Florence's father, believed strongly in education. And so Flaviana became well educated for her age and time. In any event, Flaviana got married to a young man, and 2 months later, Charles went to their village and told Flaviana, I want you to be my wife. So he brought Flaviana back to the estate and told Florence's mother that she could live on one of the plantation houses while Flaviana was installed as his wife. This led to Maria becoming unhinged, if that's the right terminology, and she ended up abusing her children, including Florence, as if they were somehow to blame for Charles deciding to fall in love with his stepdaughter that he had raised. So she was sent away to a convent school when she was 7 years old, and she never returned to the plantation.
This reads like a novel at this point. It really is unbelievable, the history of this background that Florence had, and how she rose above it to really become the extraordinary young woman that she became. And of course, she married very young to, I guess, an American. Was he a soldier or a sailor?
He was a Navy officer.
And
incidentally, if I could interject one thing, Alan, you know, one of the challenges of researching this was how do I find out what her early childhood was, because I couldn't tell her story without it. And I had a researcher in the Philippines who tracked down court records, yellowed with age, from starting in 1931, 3 years after Charles Eversole died. And it was a battle over his plantation and all of the values that he had in his estate. And you had Maria's family on one side and Flaviana's children, because Charlie had 6 kids with her, on the other side. And it led me to finding affidavits, sworn affidavits and testimony, which confirmed the amazing elements to this story. So it's well researched, but yeah, what she survived to become the woman she did. When she was at the convent school, and it was a school for mestizos, meaning they were half Filipino and half American. They were called mestizos. They were also called half-breeds. They were called tar babies. There was a great deal of prejudice within the American expatriate community there. But that toughened her, that strengthened her. She became a mentor for the younger girls dealing with that level of prejudice. And she developed an independence that she always held on to right up until she passed away at 101.
And she married young to this United States military man when actually the Battle of the Philippines started. He died a hero, and she was left as a very young widow. And I think it was her anger at the loss of him, plus this spirit, this incredible spirit, as you say, indomitable, that she had, that led her to really do some very heroic things during World War II. And I'm going to bring in Bill Raker now, who is one of our guest hosts. And Bill also, as I did and as Sharon did, Sharon is sitting right here, by the way, Bill read the book, and I would like him to talk to you and give some comments on the book, as well as me. So Bill, if you're ready to join us, and there you are.
Well, I think,
Hi, Bill.
yes. Hi, Bob. Thank you, Alan, for inviting me to be a small part of this interview that you're having with Bob. And I do have a few thoughts to share with you all about the book. But first of all, I'd like to commend you, Bob, for discovering this story and for your interest in Florence and for all of the work that you did in your research to create this just amazing narrative about an extraordinary person. I found the book easy and quick flowing, but intense. And I couldn't put it down except to eat and sleep. You know, I was anxious to discover what was going to happen in the next chapter. And each chapter had, you know, a revealing point to make, helping to connect the many different characters that you brought into the narrative. And there was just countless pivotal points where it seemed that it was certain that Florence was not going to survive. But miraculously, she did, and she emerged even stronger and went on to take more risks and to go on to achieve even more. You've already mentioned this aspect, but one of my takeaways is that despite the harrowing episodes and numerous achievements and many awards and commendations that Florence received, she never seemed to see herself as a hero. She was doing what she believed in, what she thought was right, and she was really committed to it. Just a final thought. I'm looking forward to the movie. Ron Howard directing. No, it's a great story. It's got to be made into a movie. It just absolutely does.
Is that
Well,
on
thank you, Bill, for those
the
kind words.
is that on the slate someplace, Bob? In terms
Well, it's kind of interesting. I won't dwell on it too much, but I only learned about this story through a fellow who I had worked with when we made our film together, the Congressman. His name is Fred Roos, R-O-O-S. And Fred was the producer of all of Francis Coppola's films from Apocalypse Now on. And he happened to be in Manhattan in early 2017 for the Godfather reunion with Mr. De Niro and Pacino and Mr. Coppola. And I met Fred at his hotel for a drink. And the first thing he did was shove the New York Times at me and said, "Did you read this obituary about this woman?" And I never would have read it because I was traveling at the time. But it was the obituary of Florence Finch. And Fred said, you know, I spent almost 2 years in the Philippines when we made Apocalypse Now, and I love the country. I love the people. I think this would make a hell of a movie. And why don't you go back to Ithaca and get the rights to the story from the family, Florence's children. And I did. And so Fred and I are working on it together now. And he is, I think, in the process of showing it to a young Filipino-American director. And he wants to do the film in the film. It couldn't be made anywhere else but the Philippines. And so, you know, I used to think there was more bullshit pound for pound in Washington, D.C. than any other place in the world. But I think the movie business is a close second to that. So you never know. Fred is not a bullshit artist. I mean, he's a great guy in his 80s now, but still going strong. He makes me look like a kid. But anyway, there's a chance, Bill, and thank you for those kind words.
I saw that script, that is a movie script, all the way through it. So I'm delighted to learn that there's something in the works, and I hope it will turn out very successfully for you real soon. I'll leave on one teaser. I think Florence probably stole more petroleum from the Japanese than anybody else ever did.
That's for sure.
Give away too much of the story, but that's a teaser.
Well, I have no doubt that the book is going to win an award in its own right. And it really is a riveting story. I have to say that guys in their 80s have a lot of steam still left in them, speaking individually, Bob. Since I am your senior, and at 86, you know, we've been doing this for 22 years here in Minnesota, which is covered with snow, by the way. I'm sure you don't miss that. Even though you're in Maine, I don't think you have any snow at the moment. We had a record.
No, we don't.
We had a record snow 2 days ago, 8 inches.
Wow.
And
You're writing another book?
the book itself is not only a book about Florence Finch. What struck me about it is that it is a great historical tableau of World War II in the Philippines. It tells stories about MacArthur as the man he was, and certainly had a lot of blemishes on him, but it also tells us about the lives of many other people who touched Florence and who were important to the book. Yes, she had an important job. Yes, she managed to pilfer untold amounts of petroleum from the Japanese, who she was working in I guess, an accounting office, and get it to the mercenaries or the patriots who were hiding in the hills, and was very, very important in terms of the guerrilla warfare that they engaged in. So the book is all of that. It's the historical tableau that really, really caught me as much as the story of Florence Finch. And for anybody who really wants riveting reading and a story that has all the earmarks of a novel, you wouldn't believe it. The Indomitable Florence Finch is that story.
You know, Alan, needless to say, there have been tens of thousands of nonfiction books about men at war, and thousands of men at war during World War II. But there are very few about women and what they accomplished. And Florence was a warrior, but she never picked up a gun. She used a pen. And using that pen, she was able to divert tons of gas and diesel fuel from the Japanese army to the underground, the Philippine underground, and also to the black marketers, where she was selling the fuel to get the cash to buy medicine and food that she was then smuggling in to the biggest prisoner of war camp in the Philippines. It was called Cabanatuan. There were close to 10,000 Americans there. They were dying by the hundreds every week. And she saved a lot of their lives. And everyone in her network, the people that she had worked for before the war, she worked for Army intelligence, US Army intelligence, just about all of them were killed during the war. And she viewed them as the heroes, not herself, which is why she never dwelled on it, never really spoke about it. Her kids didn't know she had the Medal of Freedom from President Truman until 50 years after the war. It was a privilege to research and write her story. I mean, she truly was strong, independent, indomitable. I think I'm so proud to have written the book.
And in addition to that, she actually was exposed, and she was captured as a spy by the Japanese. She was tortured, she was raped, she was subjected to all sorts of hideous torture. And again, her children never knew. At the time of World War II, I was living in Florida, and my best friend who lived around the corner, his father had been a civilian in the Philippines, and he had lived through the Bataan Death March. And when he came home at the end of the war, he was a scarecrow of a man. It was really kind of shocking to see him. He looked like one of the Holocaust prisoners. And what she worked with there, I mean, I think there were 200 left out of how many thousands in the camp that she was supplying food to, sub rosa, bribing guards and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, when she was caught by the Japanese, and again, this was not something she dwelled on. She only confided to her daughter that she had been raped by the Japanese prison guards long after the war. I mean, possibly within the last 10 years or so. And she didn't want them to feel that she had suffered as greatly as she did. But she had that spirit, and you and Bill have talked about it. It just brought her through. She had a strength, an inner strength. She could, you know, her first husband was killed saving a crewmate off Bataan, and he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, which is the second highest award for valor. And you're right, it was her anger over his death that made her feel that I want to do something to help defeat the Japanese occupying authority. And that's, you know, what led her into the steps that she took. And when she was going to be beheaded by the Japanese in prison, when she was rescued by men from the 1st Cavalry Division entering the Manila in February of 1945. And when she came out, she weighed 75 pounds and just survived by literally the skin of her teeth.
Well, you haven't met Sharon, who's my wife and co-producer, but she's sitting here with me and she wants to know, are you working on another book at the moment, or are you involved in seeing that this becomes a movie?
Well, I'm working with Fred Roos to see if the film can be developed in the right way. And we're working with this female director, a strong young Filipina director. And my hope is, you know, it's not an easy film to make. It's a period film. It's a $20 million film or limited television series, perhaps 6-part television series. So there are a lot of steps that are required. With regard to another book, I must confess that living the nightmare that we have been living in as Americans, I'm in creative limbo along with physical limbo, just like all the rest of us in a sense. And my hope is that the nightmare will be over very soon. You probably don't want me to get political at all here.
Oh, I'd love you to get political, because there's nobody more political than I am. I've done a lot of writing also over the years, but lately my writing has all been in the newspapers. In fact, I look at my blog and I have so many anti-Trump articles in there that, you know, every time the doorbell rings, I think it's probably the federales coming for me. But yeah, we will endure this. We will
Yes.
survive it. We have only a week to go. And I think what people should know about you also, that in addition to being a congressman and a military historian and and the author of 11 books, most of which have won awards of one sort or another, and prestigious awards, I might add, and the movie, The Congressman, which Bill actually enjoyed along with Sharon and I. You were the author of the Amerasian Homecoming Act when you were in Congress. Tell us about that.
Well, I served in the Navy during the Vietnam War, and I met a lot of Marines who came back from that war, and it led to my becoming aware that we had left behind, if you will, thousands of young children fathered by Americans, and they were condemned to a life in the streets, many of them, there were thousands of them, because Vietnam is a very racially pure society, and their faces were painful reminders of the war, particularly with the Black Amerasians who stood out very dramatically. And so I decided to commit myself to trying to find a way to bring the Amerasians who wanted to come to the United States here And so in 1987, I wrote a law called the Amerasian Homecoming Act that I was able to put into one of the continuing resolutions at that time when President Reagan was in office. And we brought 19,000 young Amerasian boys and girls, or actually the average age at that point was around 17, to the United States, where they were able to have a chance at least at a life, a worthwhile life. They were called Bui Doi in Vietnam, Children of the Dust. And I'm pleased to say I was contacted recently by an organization that's, there were so many success stories with those kids. They've gone to prestigious universities and done well with their lives. And it's something I'm really proud to have done. And I might say that you are a hero on your own, as was Florence Finch, in not only authoring that bill, but getting it passed and getting all those lives brought into this country where they have become good citizens, perhaps not to the happiness of our current president, but he too shall pass. I also want to mention, and we only have a moment or two left, that you authored the National Film Preservation Act, which has saved countless films and created the National Film Registry, where we were losing all these films. And so you have been a hero in many regards. And I would be remiss also if I didn't say that even though you had the bad choice to go to Cornell when I was at Syracuse, you left Cornell and enlisted in the Navy to partake or be part of the Vietnam War. So you didn't have the bone spurs in your heels, and you served a stint in the Navy as well. Well, thank you. Like Florence, I don't consider myself a hero in any way, but I like to think I've made a few contributions along the journey of life. And all of my books really are about the important values of honor, sacrifice, love. I really think it's important when we live in a time of celebrating celebrity that we remember the values that have made this country great. And so it's been fun to have a chance to work on those. Well, I hope that we get the opportunity to break bread once again. And I'm going to let Bill close out this segment because I know he has something else to say. And Bob, thank you so much. We will be in touch and we will communicate and come to about February, come to Minnesota because the weather is lovely. Bill, take it away.
We have some better days in other parts of the year, but Bob, I just wanted a final comment to say how much I appreciate the opportunity to meet you virtually and to tell you how much I appreciated the great work that you did in bringing out the book about Florence. And thank you so much for all of your contributions politically, literarily, and all of the other things that you've done in your life, in your career, which is not done yet. So thank you, and I look forward to more things to come from you. Stay well.
And the best is yet ahead for all of us.
And whenever you get to Minnesota, Bill and his wife, Wanapa, will be there with Sharon and I to really greet you and to feed you. Bob, it's been great. And really, congratulations. The book is The Indomitable Florence Finch. If you haven't read it, read it. It's marvelous. And I thank Bob Mrazek so much.
Thank you, Alan. And Sharon, I haven't met you virtually yet, but I look forward to seeing you in real life. At some point, I'll get to Minnesota, I hope.
Well, we certainly hope so also. And this is Access to Democracy signing off.